Hello caffeine fiends and welcome to another coffee review video for www.getbean.com. I'm Vince the Mean Bean Machine and today we are returning to an old favourite, HR Higgins Coffee Man Limited. Now HR Higgins, as I've mentioned many times before, are the coffee and tea provider to the royal households, so they have certain kind of heritage and a level of recognition there. So all of their coffees are good. That goes without a doubt. From a tasting perspective, from a quality perspective, they're all good, and I rate them all highly. So the ones I've tasted. So it's just a case of looking over the flavours and whether I like them or not. In general, for HR Higgins, so they do really good stuff. They're a favourite of mine. I wish I could buy more. They are a little more pricey than other places, partly because of that. That level of recognition they have, but sometimes it's worth paying that little bit extra. Now, for those of you who are regular viewers, will know I reviewed their coffee tasting bag. I received their coffee tasting. I think it's just called coffee taster kit. Comes with samples of 125 gram samples of 3 different coffees of their kind of favourite classic coffees. I have previously reviewed the Brazil bourbon as part of the taster kit. The other one that comes in it is the Colombian Coffee Supreme, which I have also previously reviewed, but not part of the taster kit. Same coffee, just didn't come as part of the taster kit. So today we're looking at the Peru Inambari FTO Very Dark Roast. So I've got 125 grams as part of the taster kit. For 250 grams usually it's £12. Now, as I said, that is slightly more than you would usually pay for 250 grams, but you are paying for quality and the name and the royal seal of approval, which is there, and so on and so forth. And it's good coffee. I don't know about this, but all the others that are like £12, you get what you pay for in terms of HR Higgins. So usually if you do see a slightly pricier coffee, you do kind of go, oh, I bet that'll taste good. Or, certainly it'll have a smoothness that you don't find with other coffees. Anyway, back to Peru Inambari. I'm really sorry to people who know what this word is if I'm butchering it, but Peru Inambari. So it's a very dark roast. So initially, it's not something I would go for, but typically, dark roasts tend to have that kind of nice smoky flavour. A lot of people think because they're darker and have that kind of heavier, smokier taste, they taste very much how traditional coffee in this country would taste. People think they're quite heavily caffeinated. They're not. The darker the roast, the less the caffeine, because you burn off the oils. So if it's a very dark roast, probably not that caffeinated, which puts me on edge just because I like my caffeine. I like my coffee to be caffeinated. I'm not a decaf fan particularly. I can appreciate a good tasting decaf, but the oil is where the flavour is, and that's where the caffeine is, in my opinion. So I don't usually buy dark roasts. That being said, I have really enjoyed some dark roasts before because they do give you something slightly different. That smokiness, that slight, not burnt flavour. You get burnt coffee, you know it, but that kind of wood smoke to it. So the description of this coffee claims that the flavour notes are... So, as a very dark roast, it becomes very smooth and mellow without any bitterness. Excellent. I don't like bitterness at all, really. I mean, I do, because I like coffee, but in my coffee, if I can avoid that bitterness, great. So, very interesting. Now, highlighting notes of citrus fruit, apricot, lychee. I would not necessarily associate fruity, citrusy flavours with dark roasts. I don't know why, that may just be me. You don't tend to get the sweeter caramelly ones in dark roasts, so that's just my association there. I mean, that is correct. You should be getting fruitier notes. With a rich and delicious almond and caramel finish. There you go, I've just contradicted myself. Caramel finish. So, what do I know? Anyway, interesting that it's so fruity and yet has a caramelly finish. Caramel finishes tend to come up in nuttier, more chocolatey coffees. Almond suggests an interesting kind of nutty finish to it that I would expect. So I'm expecting sort of with citrus fruits, apricot and lychee. Lychee is not a strong flavour. If I get lychee, I'll be very impressed, to be honest. But I expect kind of that citrus note to hit me first, and then a nice kind of nutty, almost woody aftertaste on the tongue is essentially what I'm expecting. So for £12, I'm hoping this would be very good. But I'm not saying it won't be good. I am just intrigued by those tasting notes on a dark roast. I don't drink dark roasts a lot, so this will be quite a different coffee for me. Now the brewing guide recommends a pour over or a filter. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to espresso it, because every time I do a filter or an espresso by the recommendation, the lovely folks at HR Higgins always leave me a comment going, oh, it can be used as an espresso or a filter or whatever. And I really like espresso coffee, so I'm just going to do it as an espresso today. And I'm sure they'll leave me a comment going, nah, that's definitely only for filter. Anyway, that's just the way it goes. Anyway, really excited about this because I like HR Higgins, and dark roasts are not something I naturally try. So what I'm expecting is kind of a hit of fruitiness. The complete lack of bitterness is something that really intrigues me. I wonder how acidic it will be then, depending if they've managed to wipe out their bitterness. But from that, I'm hoping for something really kind of smooth, fruity, then a nice kind of nutty or slightly woody finish at the end. Yeah. However, the dark roast typically suggests a smokiness, which isn't mentioned in that. So I'm really, really kind of at odds of what to expect. So we'll grind it up, give it a go as the espresso shot, as an oat latte, see what we think. So there we have our espresso shot, and just look at the juxtaposition of that gorgeous golden crema and that really dark heart there. I mean, it just looks beautiful, and it smells fantastic. It has this fantastic, rich, warm smell coming off of it, kind of, oaky and wooden, and but it smells fantastic. If you smelt that in a coffee shop, if you were sitting there, I just have images of me sitting in like a nice leather wingback, and the smell of this coffee wafts over, and I put down my classics, and I'm like, thank you, Jeeves or whoever. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but it smells so rich and so kind of luxurious, and that's before I've even tasted it. So, God, I hope it tastes good, but looks great, smells great. There is a woodiness to it. There is that rich woodiness, and I don't mean that as a it smells woody. I mean that as a genuine, like if you walk into a pine furniture store and you go, Jesus, that smells good. Something like that. There is something really beautiful about that, and I hope it tastes as rich as it smells. Oh wow, super dark. And it does say very dark roast, but you just don't expect that. Wow, it's almost like drinking a Guinness, not in flavour, but that really kind of dark, heavy, rich, beany texture is there. But it's incredibly smooth, which is really kind of fries the brain. You kind of go something that dark and that heavy, and no bitterness. it's very bizarre. But yeah, I think that Guinness, association is correct in terms of that kind of smooth, rich heaviness. I mean, it's been many years since I've had a Guinness, but that's just what it brings to mind. And then there's kind of that woody smell that just, I can't put my finger on a lot. It's just that darkness is just completely dominated my mindset. And then you take another sip, and the very tip, like, fruit is not what is coming to mind at all, but at the very tip of the tongue is a slight kind of light fruitiness. But no one is drinking that going, that's a fruity coffee. It's probably there if you really think about it, but the darkness is just, whew. That, I guess that almond nuttiness is there. Again, just that end note, you get that kind of woody smell, and then just at the front of your mouth is kind of, slightly sweet, nutty. Sweet's not even right. But yeah, there's like a real, possibly dark fruits, a real darkness, a real sweetness. So what does it say? Smooth and mellow. Yeah. Without any bit of highlighting citrus notes. Not particularly getting apricot, possibly. That's possibly the note I'm getting. Lychee, I'm not expecting to get. Well, it's a very mild flavour. Well, it's not a mild flavour, but it gets overpowered by other things. Almond and caramel finish. Caramel, I'm getting that kind of sugary mouthfeel. There's a sweetness and that real richness. Not super, like, it's not like sweet and sugary like caramel, but that rich, luxurious, smooth kind of layering is definitely there. But I have not had a coffee that dark in a long, long time. Possibly when I have been to Peru, I remember drinking a coffee that was like rocket fuel. But this, wow, genuinely blown away a little bit. I'm going to try that as an oat latte and see if that tempers anything and brings out any kind of those lighter notes, because that is so dark. I can imagine that is probably why it's recommended as filter and not espresso. So you get more water through it, more space, and those notes can have more time to, more space to be able to be identified, whereas espresso is a kind of a condensed down shot and punch. So I may, I'm willing to suggest that I may have used the wrong brew method, really. However, that's not to say that is bad coffee as an espresso. It's just, wow, is that dark? Wow. And they warned me, but I just thought, yeah, all right, dark roast. No, very dark roast. Whew. Anyway, give it a go as an oat latte, see what we think then. Here we have it as the latte, and as you can see, still incredibly dark for a latte. But it's come out reasonably well. We'll see what we think, see if any of that fruit, any of that caramel comes through a bit more. I just don't know, really. Well, we'll see. So the milk does give those other flavours room to breathe, and there is certainly more. There's something that hits you just kind of in the roof of your mouth that's possibly more fruity, slightly higher pitched than the other tasting notes. I don't think this is a coffee that lends itself to espresso per se. It's too dark. I'm enjoying this, just to be clear, but it's not espresso coffee. It's definitely a filter coffee. I think, you know, were I to do this again, I think filter is probably the correct way to go. But that caramel is there. But that darkness is just so overwhelmingly powerful. It's really hard to think about anything else that's in the mix. But it's a really nice, rich darkness. A really good coffee, but I just don't know. I just can't pinpoint a lot more. On second or third revisiting, you can start to pick out those slightly sweeter, lighter notes. Still not getting citrus per se. I guess because I associate citrus with acidity, and there's not a lot there. There's not a lot of bite. It's so smooth and mellow. That is certainly correct. That, you know, the light fruit tones are there, but they're buried under kind of that heavy darkness. And I wouldn't say there's a sweetness, but because of the lack of bitterness and acidity, there is something there. And I guess that is, in real terms, kind of the sweetness of those fruity tones. So yeah, a really interesting coffee. I'll go away and have a think about it, but thoroughly enjoyable, and it looks like HR Higgins have done it again. I've gone away and had a think about it and written some notes about the Peru Inambari FTO Very Dark Roast. So let's see what I think about this coffee. And straight away, I've gone bang in with 4 stars. £12 makes it a little pricier, but it is good quality coffee, and that's sort of what you expect from HR Higgins. You're going to pay a little bit more for the premium of it. You know, and that's the way coffee is going as well. It is getting more pricey, so, you know, £12, fine. So just my thoughts on it: an incredibly dark, but with a rich smoothness. There's no bitterness, there's no roughness, there's very little acidity. You know, and there's light fruity notes that can be hard to identify, but they are there. You have to work for it, but they are there on the tip of your tongue. Not really suited to oat lattes, as I kind of discovered. The milk just doesn't complement it particularly. Just dampens things down. Does give a bit of breathing room for those fruitier notes to come out, but not really. However, a long black drink is where it's best. Again, espresso I just think was probably a bit more compact, but if you put it over a filter, perhaps have it as a long black, that is going to be a gorgeous drink, absolutely gorgeous. So I've given it the 4 stars. Really impressive stuff. So thank you for watching. Do hit those like and subscribe buttons, and we'll see you all soon for another coffee review. Bye bye.